All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be located at in the world. This is our Azure webinar series continued on this year, and today's session is going to be focused on best practices to accelerate your migration into Azure, and that will be from wherever you're currently located at now into the Azure platform. Before we kind of move forward within the presentation here, I just wanted to call out a few kind of notes here before we get into the full content and details. So as we move forward throughout this presentation, there is actually a Q&A window that you will see on your screen. So as we go forward with this, whether it's myself talking or one of our other presenters, if anyone has any questions at all or something doesn't make sense, please put that into the Q&A window that we do have set off to the side here, and either myself or one of our other team members will answer your questions as you move forward throughout the presentation. And something else that I do want to bring up as well is that we will have a bookings link that will be provided to you for the Henson group specifically, so that if there's something that anyone wants to move forward with, get further clarification, or the things that we talk about today are like, yep, I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's talk about migrations and all the good things that we can do with Microsoft. You'll have direct access to our sales team and our technical team through that bookings link. Just simply put your information in there and we can get a meeting set up that way. And lastly, we will share a recording of this presentation when we're finalized with it, so that everyone can take a second look through it or share it with anyone else that it would be relevant for. And when we do share out that presentation, if there are other questions or comments that do come up, don't hesitate to reach out to those or out to us as well, and we'll be able to address those when they come up. But we'll move forward here with the presentation. All right. Without further ado, the lovely voice you hear today is myself, Ben Jastrom. I am the Director of Business Development here at the Henson Group. Lucky for everyone here, I am also former Microsoft, as well as most of our company, which I'll get to here in a little bit. So a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today are going to be very focused on the Microsoft side and how you guys can accelerate your own company, your infrastructure, as you look to move them, if you're not in the cloud already, into the cloud, or if you're in a competing platform, if you kind of want to see what Microsoft has to offer versus what you are getting today. So a little bit about the Henson Group. We've been around for a little over 20 years. Our founder and chairman of our board today was actually also a former Microsoft employee. So he kind of got some best practices and learnings from his time there and migrated that into the partner channel, where now today we help thousands of customers in the US and globally kind of realize their efforts in the cloud platform and their cloud transformation, depending on where they are at in that journey. Now, for the Henson Group specifically, we have a little over 200 employees, and those are spread out all across the world. Our main headquarters is in New York City, but we do have a lot of folks in the EMEA and APAC territories, as well as other territories spread across here in North America. Now, one of our big focuses is we are an Azure expert MSP and have a lot of advanced specializations when it comes to the Azure platform. Now, what that means is that we've gone through a lot of trainings and audits with the internal Microsoft team that says that we are one of their preferred partners when it comes to the Azure platform. And over the past couple of years, we've done hundreds of migrations from on-premise, Google, AWS, and a lot of other colos into the Azure platform, and done a lot of those optimizations and migrations for a multitude of customers in different areas and industries. And as a separate note as well, as you can see on the fourth bullet point here, is we do also license Microsoft 365. Now that will encompass everything within Office 365, Power BI, anything that you may be looking to do as a company to make sure that you're properly licensed and have the best security practices set up as you move forward now and into the future. And a couple other things too that I just wanted to touch on, as well as why customers choose Henson Group being one of Microsoft's preferred partners, is because we've done so many migrations over the past couple of years. We've actually expedited that process to keep those at very low cost. And sometimes we can even get funding either from Microsoft or our own internal funding, just kind of depending on what you as a company have going on to help fund those migrations. So just due to our expertise, we've actually mastered what we're going to be doing with you in your process and making sure that you're not only comfortable in that journey, but you have full understanding and that it's not going to break the bank to make sure that you guys are set up into the future when it comes from an IT security and compliance perspective. And one of the biggest things too that I wanted to highlight is we do also have a managed service practice. And the reason why that's important, whether you're looking to go with a company like Henson Group or one of the other many partner and providers out there, is you want to make sure that you're not only migrating to the cloud, but you also have that support after that initial project. Because one of the biggest things that we see today is not only companies migrate to the cloud and get there, that's great, but then it's like, okay, after a couple weeks, months, a year, what does it look like now moving forward? You know, costs are changing, environments are changing, your company is as well. And we want to make sure that as you move forward into the future, that you can feel safe, that you're fully secure, and you're also operating under Microsoft's best practices and procedures. And that's where our managed services team comes into play. And also the reason why we do have that Azure Expert MSP certification from Microsoft itself. Now, one of the things that we have specialized in, as I was talking about earlier, in some of those migrations is kind of a four-step approach that we take. And as you can see highlighted here on the screen is the four steps that we do take with a lot of the companies that we work with, just to make sure that we are giving you kind of the best outcome possible for whatever circumstance you may be in from a cloud and IT perspective. So generally, we'd want to start out with an assessment of the environment. And this serves as a couple of things. And a couple of those would be as we migrate you into the cloud, a lot of times being within Azure, it's licensed a little bit differently than how you may be on-prem today. So a lot of times that can be cheaper and also a little bit more efficient than what you've been doing for the past couple of years, whether that's been on-prem or within one of the other competing cloud platforms. So we really want to make sure that as we do this migration, not only from a time perspective, but that you guys are also in an optimal cost and performance environment as well as you move forward, so that there's no added or wasted costs, and you from an IT perspective can focus on a lot of the things that you're good at and then kind of leverage us as an extended part of your team moving forward into that journey. And then once we kind of have that assessment in place, we want to put together that migration plan so that you're comfortable with what's going to be going on. And a lot of the migrations that we do perform can be done during your, 8 to 5s, or they can be done outside of your peak business hours. Our technical team is 24/7, as you will see a lot within the industry and other companies like ours. So really, it's making sure that you guys are comfortable and you're ready to move at your time and make sure that it's also the right time during that process. And one of the big things that I'll lead to in this transformation piece that we do in the initial assessment is we want to make sure that we're not only getting you to the cloud, but that you're using the services that you pay for and leverage. So we want to make sure that, hey, if you're going to use this 100 gigabyte server, that you're actually using it and you're not only using 40%. So part of that transformation is just making sure that you are properly licensed, properly optimized, and have a good, clear understanding as you move forward into the future. And then the last piece that I've touched on previously here as well is that managed service piece, and that provides the support for, if something were to happen in your environment, or just for the 24/7 maintenance and care that a lot of companies like to see on their environment. Now, if you're a company that has that service in place already today, that is fantastic. You can ask our team questions or get guidance moving forward, and it's not something that it's all or nothing package. We can definitely say, hey, if you already have some of those services in place, great. We'll kind of just give our recommendation and can move forward from there. So one of the last things that I'm going to touch on from our company more specifically is So we've been a company, as I said earlier, for a little over 20 years, and just through that time, we've generated a lot of awards from Microsoft for the services that we've done, and a lot of those have been very specific to the Azure platform with migrations, funding, and optimizations that we've done for a lot of companies in the past, and then as well as making sure that you're also licensed properly. So the only way that we can get awards like this is if at the end of the day, the companies that we work with help give us those referrals and stuff back to Microsoft that, yep, we chose Henson Group because of this and this, they performed it at an optimal level and we're satisfied moving forward. So it's really, we want to make sure that at the end of the day, you from a company perspective are getting the needs and solutions that you need from an IT standpoint, and then making sure as you move forward into the future that you're comfortable with a lot of the things that can go on within the cloud platform. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the excellent Microsoft team that we have here today to touch on a few other components as we work through the session here. So thanks everyone for your time, and I'll be sitting here in the background.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you today. I'm a director working on Azure migration initiatives at Microsoft. I'm joined by two of my colleagues from Azure Engineering, Charles Shear and Jay Vinson. They'll bring their real-life perspectives and experiences from working hand in hand with our customers and partners. Charles and Jay, do you want to quickly introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Charles Shea. I'm a fast track engineer with America's infrastructure team.
Hi, I'm Jay Vinson, and I am a fast track program manager in the South region.
Thank you, and welcome again, everyone. So cloud migration has several benefits, but most organizations are motivated by one or both of the following. The first group of motivations are around reducing costs, improving security posture, and even resilience, and then driving on-demand scale, right? So all of these reasons typically point to migrations. And then there is another group of reasons, right, where customers are looking to drive better business outcomes by modernizing your applications with innovative cloud capabilities, right? And we see a lot of customers actually do even both of these together. So today's session is all about sharing guidance to get you started on this journey with the Azure Migration Program, and then best practices to help you accelerate that journey. And again, all of this is rooted in examples from customers that have actually adopted and migrated to Azure. Okay, so let's dive in. So we see several concrete reasons that trigger migration projects. If you look back at the last 8 months, they've been challenging for sure. A lot of customers are focusing on enabling remote everything models, right? So as more and more companies are adopting home working and making applications available from outside the corporate network for remote settings in a secure way. So that's one big driver to move that we are seeing. Another thing that we are seeing is scarce IT budgets and resources, and customers are actually reporting the need to free up IT dollars to invest into other parts of the business that may need it more. Cybersecurity threats are on the rise. Lack of security talent makes customers look to the cloud. Then business continuity is another real concern, right? Customers are worried about their day-to-day operations being interrupted by basic things like network connectivity or data losses. And then finally, a lot of customers, particularly in industries like healthcare and retail, they tell us that they're actually seeing a surge in demand, and they are finding that their existing systems and on-premises operations just cannot keep up, right? But we just want to let you know that we are in this together, and we understand your challenges. We want to help alleviate your risks and help you get started on your migration journey with confidence. So what does that journey look like? So we see, based on our experience, that cloud migration projects typically follow a 6-step process. And let me just break them down briefly for you. The first step is to define strategy, right? This is where you actually get centered on how you're going to go about making the move to cloud, including defining your migration and modernization approaches. And then more importantly, aligning key stakeholders to the vision and the roadmap. The next up is the planning stage, right? Where you say, all right, let me do some discovery, let me do some assessment of my on-premises environments, and then ultimately identify concrete migration projects with the needed sponsorship, the timelines, and resourcing to make it happen, right? The next step is the readiness phase, where you equip your team members with the right cloud skill sets and mindsets, and then prepare a robust landing zone environment for your workloads as they move over to the cloud. Next come the adopt phase, where you actually make the move, right? Where you actually do the migration, you do the modernization in an iterative manner. And then the journey doesn't stop after the migration. There is an ongoing need to maintain governance, right? Which includes benchmarking and implementing best practices and policies to make sure that your workloads are well governed in the cloud as per your organizational standards. And then there is also ongoing security and management to make sure that your workloads are safe, they are protected, they are well monitored and high performing even once they are in the cloud. So think of this as having that operations mindset and start living the cloud lifestyle. So let's then talk about the Azure Migration Program and how it can help relative to the cloud journey that we just saw. Right. So our goal with Azure Migration Program, or AMP, is to help you actually simplify and accelerate the journey to the cloud. Right. So AMP provides proactive guidance and the right mix of expert help at every stage of your migration journey so that you can migrate your infrastructure or your applications or your databases with confidence. So there are a few core components of the program. Let me summarize them here, and then we'll touch upon them in some more detail. So the first piece within AMP is best practices for a step-by-step approach. So you go from start to finish in a structured manner. We have the Azure Cloud Adoption Framework as our proven methodology that has worked with several thousands of customers. Next up is technical skill building, which is very important to ensure that your organization and team members have the right level of technical knowledge and competence on Azure capabilities. Next, we offer in-depth technical assistance with our Fast Track for Azure engineering team, of which Charles and Jay are part of. So we provide this assistance to help you design your migrations, design your architecture on Azure, and help unblock those early hurdles in your cloud journey. Then we've got expert guidance from specialized migration partners who are qualified as part of a rigorous bar to be part of the program. We've got free migration tools like Azure Migrate to help you automate the process of assessments and migrations. And then finally, cost-effective offers to help you save money before, during, and after migrations. And then you see a lot of customers, the strip below, going from British Council to CIBC to Octavo. We'll talk a little bit more about some of these customers later on in this webinar. But for now, I'd like to highlight a few of these components that I touched on in some more depth. So let's start with in-depth technical assistance. So as I mentioned before, the Fast Track for Azure engineers are really the backbone of AMP, and they are the people who ensure that all stakeholders on your side, that is on the customer side, on the partner side, and on the Microsoft side, are set up for a smooth engagement. They also serve as a technical enablement resource for things like building out a landing zone and then providing the right kind of migration oversight and assistance during the actual move. And they work hand in hand with you and the migration partner, right? And what we have found from customers is that direct access to Azure engineers can actually help alleviate early challenges and give you the right confidence and support that you need to feel good about your migration journey. And then specifically wanted to touch on the landing zone concept a little bit more. So having a robust landing zone, and think of a landing zone as being the foundation, right, that we all lay for our houses, right? So think of it as that foundation for your migrated resources as being a very, very critical enabler to long-term success. So there are 5 core capabilities that are part of the landing zone, right? The first one is networking, which is ensuring that you've got the right connectivity and topology between your on-prem environment to Azure, right, both during the migration and after, right? And this could range from, VPNs to Azure Express Route, for example. Next is identity, right? Just making sure that you've got the right authentication mechanisms and access control mechanisms, right, as a key building block to enable single sign-on access, regardless of where your resources are, be it on Azure or in your on-prem environment, right? So solving for identity. Next up is management, right? So things like backup, or security, or monitoring, or DR are part and parcel of every workload that might be on your mind, right? So, and we have various options, including helping you to extend your existing management tool sets to Azure or adopt Azure native tool sets to help manage and secure. And then security is itself, a top of mind topic, right? That is also part of our landing zone dialogue, where we help you translate your on-prem security controls and processes and make sure that your workloads are set up in Azure in a way that works for your organization. And then finally, governance. Having the right governance model dictates how easily and smoothly your organization can operate, right? So it's achieving the right balance between compliance and providing your application owners with the freedom that they need to operate their workloads in the cloud. So what happens is that the Fast Track team works closely with you and the partner and your architects and other technical stakeholders to design your landing zone. And if you already have a landing zone, then the Fast Track team will review it and provide best practice recommendations, right? And then the partner is involved in actually building out and deploying the landing zone design that Fast Track approves. Next, let's touch on the skilling piece. So skilling is a critical component, and we've actually seen that if your organization is skilled up on Azure, that can really help accelerate the migration journey. So within AMP, each engagement is matched with a curated curriculum, if you will, that spans Azure fundamentals, right? Think of fundamental concepts around using Azure, as well as role-specific courses, right? For your IT pros, your developers, your architects. And then migration-specific topics, right? How do I migrate a Windows server versus how do I migrate a SQL server or Linux or other workloads, right? So think of it as being a robust curriculum that best meets your needs. Let's now talk about the offers that we enable as part of AMP. Right, our goal here is to make sure that we offset your transition costs and effort, during the migration, because a lot of you might be thinking, gosh, do I have to maintain parallel environments on premises and in Azure during the migration process? So our intent here is to support you with offers and incentives to reduce your migration costs. So we have offers like the Azure Hybrid Benefit and free extended security updates for Windows Server 2008 and SQL Server 2008 workloads. We also offer Azure credits to offset the costs of maintaining parallel environments as you test your migrations. Next up is tooling, migration tools, right? The automation that helps you discover and assess and migrate your workloads. So Azure Migrate is a built-in Azure service. It's the hub for all your migration needs. So Azure Migrate can help you discover, assess, and migrate your apps, your infrastructure, and data. It provides broad migration scenario coverage, including Windows Server migrations or SQL migrations, even VDI, as well as Linux and web apps and Azure VMware solution as well. Azure Migrate supports assessment and migrations from several environments, right? So your on-premises environment could be based on VMware, it could be based on Hyper-V, it could be workloads running on physical server environments. And then we also support in Azure Migrate the ability to migrate from AWS or Google Cloud Platform to Azure as well. And then finally, Azure Migrate can help you centrally plan and track migration progress across Microsoft tooling or even third-party ISV migration tools. And then finally, one of the key factors for successful migration projects is having the right partner to support you in the journey, working closely with us. So we've heard that customers often struggle with the complexity of migration. So that's why we have a robust partner ecosystem to help you there. So we find that partner expertise is key to deliver on the AMP promise. So we actually engage you with a specialized migration partner for technical assistance based on your project sizing. Now, AMP partners are rigorously qualified through our Azure Expert MSP program, as well as an advanced specialization program. So you have the needed confidence, right? So think of Azure Expert MSP as being an umbrella program, whereas advanced specialization is much more oriented towards a particular capability or a workload specialization, right? So that way, partners have flexibility in the certifications that they choose to go through, and then you get the right kind of support based on the migration project that you have. Now let's transition a bit and bring on our Fast Track for Azure engineers to take you through best practices for AMP engagements. So let me hand off to Charles to talk about what a typical project looks like.
Appreciate that. I like to start with a question we are often asked in Fast Track, and that is, what does a typical project look like? The short answer is there really is no typical migration project. Real-life migrations can be complex and definitely a little messy to navigate. And this is from our Fast Track team, which has been working with many customers, and you can see the journey is far from linear. Typically, a customer's cloud journey is mid to long-term initiative. Not every team or department migrates all workloads at once. Some approach in waves and different phases. But when the learning and insights are carried forward, it can definitely help accelerate the migration. A customer's project could include a diverse set of workloads such as Windows Server, SQL Server, Linux, open source databases, web applications, virtual desktop infrastructure. AMP does provide technical assistance based on the project size. We define the right mix of help based on your need. Azure Migration Program supports different types of migration scenarios, such as data center migration, which includes migrating Windows Server, SQL Server, Linux, and MySQL. Azure VMware Solutions is also supported migration destination in certain regions. Virtual desktop infrastructure is also something that we're supported with Windows Virtual Desktop as the destination. We also support VMware and Citrix solutions. And also .NET Web App modernization onto Azure App Services and Azure SQL. Jay?
Thank you, Charles. So let's walk through the AMP engagement model and some of the milestones you can expect. So as you can see, there are 3 key parties in an AMP engagement: the customer, Microsoft, and the partner. It's critical that each stakeholder has an executive sponsor and a project lead, and that before kicking off this project, each clearly understands their own swim lane. Customers, partners, or Microsoft sales reps can submit nominations for customers who are ready to make the move. Once the nomination is submitted, it is reviewed, and then the project size and scope is validated. Microsoft will notify the customer with details on how we can help with the cloud migration, including a mix of online best practice resources and direct technical assistance if the project size qualifies. And then kicking off the migration, we will help customers assess and migrate the environment. In addition, we'll provide resources to optimize migration costs and secure the environment for ongoing success with Azure. As a customer, you might receive one of 2 types of offers: an offer for direct technical assistance or an offer for robust self-guided digital experience. The direct technical assistance path includes a dedicated Azure engineer for validation of the landing zone architecture and guidance for migration planning and execution. It will also include a zero cost or subsidized skilling to help you gain Azure knowledge, and a qualified migration partner will be matched to the needs of the opportunity. So once this offer is accepted, we move to scope the project with you and the partner, followed by a migration execution. Here we kick off the AMP execution journey with landing zone deep dive and guidance on migration planning and preparation. This is continued with an ongoing handholding until a few initial migration waves are completed and executed and stabilized. This ensures that the migration is on the right path for successful completion. All customers are eligible for our self-guided AMP digital experience as well, which includes email-based guidance, digital courses, and partner connection. So let's draw on some of our real-life engagements and share some best practices. This way you can avoid some typical gotchas during migration execution.
First step is to help customers understand readiness to migrate, how to be prepared to migrate their on-prem workload. A great customer highlighted here is NeoGrid, a global technology provider out of Brazil for supply chain management, covering everything from manufacturing and distribution to retail. NeoGrid wanted to migrate from their 5 co-located data centers and at the same time an application from AWS environment. Some of the key insights from this AMP project include prioritizing assessments and driving stakeholder alignment. Taking stock of the customer's environment is key. This includes an in-depth assessment, including right sizing and licensing offers like Azure Hybrid Benefit, and a TCO business case. Tools like Azure Migrate can help ease this work. Partners have a huge advisory role, as this is where key decisions like migrate versus modernize are made, which ultimately folds into a high confidence migration plan. We had all the stakeholders aligned up front: customer, partner, fast track engineers, product teams, and cloud solution architects. This team was instrumental in clearing the easy hurdles, after which the partner was able to smoothly finish up the migration in a few weeks.
So Norwegian dairy producer Tina lowered costs and improved operations. To streamline the move and benefit from hands-on technical guidance from Microsoft and partner experts, Tina leveraged the Azure Migration Program with a lift, optimize, shift approach. Like Tina did, we recommend an iterative, wave-oriented approach to deeper technical assessments and migration. This means picking a manageable sized cohort of workloads or applications for each wave and using automation to move them over. In the Azure Migration Program, we've been running projects with 6 to 8 applications in a wave. This approach enables IT teams and partners to work with application teams in a focused manner, thereby increasing the chances of a high-quality migration. Typical application owner concerns include right-sizing, comprehensive dependency mapping to ensure no component gets left behind, application and database compatibility, adequate testing before cutover, and adherence to change management windows. This does imply taking a conservative approach during the initial migration waves, but we've seen several application owners accelerate their subsequent waves as they begin to reap the agility and on-demand scale benefits of the cloud. So what learnings can you take for your own project? Well, start small and move quickly to gain confidence and drive migration scale. The Azure Migration Program provided technical advice and regular check-ins, ensuring Tina quickly identified and was able to get help with challenges.
So Octavo future-proofed its business with support from Azure Migration Program. Along with Software One, who was their AMP partner in this process, they were able to seamlessly transition to Azure and stay resilient even during a global health crisis. Some of the best practices here is engage a partner. Partners should be part of the migration project as early as possible and should not be viewed as just implementing the actual workloads for you. They're an important component of the strategy, and they help you plan and eventually will help you execute your migration. Many customers who I work with have a relationship with an incumbent partner. Having a well-qualified partner with you throughout the journey can help you effectively augment your cloud skill sets and de-risk the journey. Several partners offer turnkey management services that span pre-migration and also post-migration operational support. Octavo is also building a knowledge base on Azure by participating in Azure fundamental training. And the skilling is building block to ensure long-term success across their organization.
The American Cancer Society is on a mission to free the world from cancer. Due to the global health crisis, this nonprofit needed to exit their data center quickly and save money. The Azure Migration Program was there to help execute this migration at a rapid pace and mitigate risk. What we learned here is in order to scale from the start, it's important to have a robust landing zone for workloads to migrate into. Subscriptions, management, networking, and policy-based automation are all critical pieces to long-term migration success. We have reference implementation that enables effective construction and operationalization of landing zones on Azure at scale and aligned with our Azure roadmap and cloud adoption framework. Our approach is proven, authoritative, and prescriptive. In the end, we were able to help American Cancer Society migrate in 8 weeks, which was faster than their already aggressive timeline laid out.
So how can you get started? Start submitting a simple form telling us about your migration project. After you submit the form, Microsoft will identify the right mix of resources for unique scenarios and advise you on the next steps. Microsoft will help you to assess and migrate your environment. In addition, we'll provide you with resources to optimize your cost and secure your environment for ongoing success with Azure.
Now we'll share short videos so you hear directly from our customers, including Octavo, British Council, LPA, and the American Cancer Society, about the impact the Azure Migration Program has had on their business. Microsoft experts and specialized migration partners came together to simplify and accelerate their journey to the cloud.
Recently, because of COVID-19 and revenue shortfalls due to that, there was a business analysis that was done that indicated that moving to more of a virtual model where we could service customers and patients and constituents much faster. Azure was the best option due to cost, timelines, risk level, and future business capabilities.
IT is not the key element of the mission and of delivery, but still it's needed. My key challenges here were distributed decision-making process and not the state-of-the-art infrastructure. Scaling up was really a hassle. One of the drivers to go to Azure was the fact that here we can spin up the workloads and VMs and size them up to the need almost in seconds, and then scale them down when we don't need them.
With the best practices from the Azure Migration Program, we were able to migrate our infrastructure entirely onto Azure. Migrating from one infrastructure to another, it's complex and it carries risk. We found that there can be small details that have a big impact. Microsoft helped us with the analysis where the issues is coming from and resolving those issues very quickly.
We could not afford to miss critical timelines. Microsoft and our migration partner were extremely valuable in guiding us through the migration to Azure, where we had no room for error.
In terms of Azure Migration Program, we worked with experienced individuals who walked us through this scenario. Amazingly, this program delivers significant savings, around 50% to what we have paid before.
We've got a very solid platform, and that was quite evident as we came through COVID and the pandemic in terms of we moved from an on-prem operation where we moved everybody to working from home seamlessly, quickly, easily, without any major headaches. The project allowed us to future-proof our business and to future-proof it in such a way that we're now OpEx-focused as opposed to CapEx-focused.
Azure allows us to meet customer needs quickly. We have a wealth of capabilities available to us through Azure. It allows us to have a greater impact in fighting cancer.
We've been able to reduce costs for our clients. We've been able to streamline their processes. We've been able to give them a lot more flexibility, standardization, and help in terms of automation.
The right people were there to meet the needs. It was logical, it was progressive. It was one of the easiest projects that I've managed because we had the right partners and we had the right team supporting us.
Great video. So before we close, let's tackle some of the common questions we've received from customers in the past. So Charles, this one is for you. What are the top 3 recommendations, best practices to approach migration projects that you would share with our customers based on your experience?
So yes, upfront stakeholder alignment is probably one of our top recommendations. You want to make sure that you get everyone aligned behind your cloud migration plan. And this includes not just your IT team, but your app owners, your line of business leaders, such as your CFO and your partners. You want to make sure that you have buy-in and sponsorship for your migration plan, because that is key in moving forward in the program. Prioritize and assess your migration in waves. Make sure you have a good sense of what's running in your on-prem environment and their dependencies, and which Azure capabilities are best suited. Start migrating your easier, lower, complex workload, and then learn, and then increase the scope in the different waves. And last would be bake post-migration governance and management into your migration project from the get-go to pave the way for long-term success. Our migration team talked about this in a recent blog about landing zones.
All right, thank you. So this one is for you, Jay. Any guidance for how to work with finance stakeholders as customers go about building their case for migration?
Well, firstly, I'm hearing from many customers that they're working much closer with finance these days as they plan for migrations. This CapEx to OpEx shift has implication for your organization's financial reporting, meaning it impacts your cash flow and profit loss statements. So aligning with your finance team early on and unpacking this shift is very important. And then bringing them into periodic reviews as your migration progresses helps too. As you plan and execute the migration, ensure you take full advantage of the economic financial levers to optimize your costs. For example, pay-as-you-go capacity, multi-year capacity and reserve instances, spot pricing, using Azure Hybrid Benefit, fine-grained controls to right-size your compute and storage and network. We have several tools that can help here. Check out a blog that we recently released to learn more.
All right, so let me take the next two. So the next one is, what are the requirements to sign up for the Azure Migration Program, or AMP? So as a customer, the requirements are pretty basic, right? The first thing is you're hopefully using some Azure today and are in a supported AMP geography. And we are basically offering AMP in most parts of the world, so that shouldn't be an issue. Next up, your project is sponsored and resourced and scoped with concrete workloads and timelines, right? So this goes back to what we were talking earlier in this webinar. And then finally, you agree to work with the chosen migration partner and have the right agreement so that they can help you. Next up, the question is there a cost for the Azure Migration Program? So there is no additional cost for participating in Azure Migration Program by itself. So we fund partners through AMP to help offset your costs for the AMP project. And then beyond AMP, you may choose to continue your migration journey working directly with a partner along with the associated commercials. So again, in terms of next steps to close out, to ensure that every Azure migration project gets the benefit of all of these best practices and resources, you can draw on AMP as that single unified program to help you along your migration journey. So if you're ready to make the move and just want extra assurance and confidence, join us with AMP. All of the AMP components that we are making available will set you up for a sustainable, high confidence cloud journey. So go to azure.com/AMP and nominate yourself.
All right. Thank you, Microsoft team, for providing the context and content that you did here today. I just wanted to highlight on a few examples based off what everyone heard from me at the beginning here, and then what the Microsoft team walked through here as well. And before I get into the case studies that I want to talk about that could be very similar to what a lot of you may be facing today, is if there are any other questions too, please feel free to throw them in the chat as we continue to work forward here. But with that, I do have a couple case studies that I wanted to highlight here, and I want to explain why we pulled up two case studies here. One is related to Office 365 and one is related to Azure. So on the left side is Office 365, and we wanted to put this in here because one of the big things that we touch on with every single company that we work with is the collaborated effort between Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Yes, there is a difference that we can get into, but it really ties into what you're doing from an Azure perspective and your infrastructure. So I wanted to highlight both of these because if you're a company that does leverage both of them, it's very key that you are properly optimized and are thinking about both of them all the time as you move forward in your journey today with from an IT perspective. So starting out first with the customer that we have here on the left. So this company was they were fully on-prem with an exchange server. They had roughly about 70 mailboxes, and through the process that I spoke about earlier, as we ran kind of a full assessment on their current environment of how much data do they have, how many users do they have, where are the security endpoints, and because we did that assessment, we were able to not only discuss what the timelines and timeframes would look like for a potential migration, but also making sure that they were properly licensed within the Microsoft platform. And later on, this actually did set up to a few workings within Azure for this company specifically, but it all started from their Office 365 journey, which we do see a lot today, is that a lot of companies will make sure that from a user perspective, they're set up with Teams, with Outlook, and a few other things within the Office 365 standpoint, and then slowly work their way over into Azure. Or there are some companies that do it hand in hand right away from day one. So that's why we definitely wanted to make sure that we highlighted this. But getting back to call design specifically here, and these are all case studies that we'll share with you following this meeting, and you can go to our website below to get a further grasp of what some of these were and some of the projects that we have done in the past. But like I was saying, is they were fully on-prem with an Exchange server, and throughout the course of a few weeks, we had migrated them fully to Office 365, and at the end of it, made sure that we had some security checkpoints and compliancy set up so that once they were migrated, that they were properly leveraged and up to best practices with Microsoft and everything that they're looking to do today. So where that brings me to the second case study that we have is Meritage Medical. So this was another company that had a lot of lot of servers and a lot of components on-prem, but they were looking to go global with their company and some of the things that they do. So the best way to do that was jumping into the cloud, but they had to kind of go about it in the right way, as they had never been there before. So we started out doing a full assessment of their environment, and then from that first initial assessment, moved up their servers from on-prem to in Azure using disaster recovery. And then once they were fully set up here within their US location, we were able to set up VPN connections and other networking to the other territories that they were looking to do globally, so that they were set up properly and had their Azure landing zone set up so that as their company continues to grow, their environment would grow with it simultaneously. So really that four-step approach that we talked about earlier, whether you are going to be doing that on your own or with a partner like the Henson Group, it's very important to make sure that you not only have the initial migration plan in place, but also the ongoing effects after that, because there's a lot of things that go into the day-to-day maintenance, cost and security, and a lot in performance, and a lot of other components that, if you are not familiar with the cloud, can kind of either be left on the back burner or catch up with you if you're say leave a server on if you're not using it and things like that. So this was just another example of that assessment initially allowed us to make sure that everyone was comfortable in that migration process as we were moving forward. And then once it was set up and in place, we were able to leverage that to their global outreach with what they were doing as a company, and then they were able to grow as the company saw fit. So those are just two examples that we at the Henson Group have used in the past year for customers and companies like yourself that were in similar situations that were looking to go from their current point of being on-prem to the Azure platform or the Office 365 platform, as you see here. And with that, we'll hang on here for a little bit longer. I know there was a lot of content and a lot of information that was shared here today, but if anyone has questions on the case studies that I just presented, or you think something might be similar to you, or anything else that was shared in the entire presentation here today, please throw those into the Q&A window here, and then someone from our team or the Microsoft team can address those right away. In addition, while some may be gathering some questions or kind of reading through some of their notes, is we will be sharing out a bookings link as well, so that following this, you can set up a meeting directly with me or somebody from our team to get you set on the right path moving forward in your IT journey. And another reminder is we will be sharing this recording at the end once we have everything gathered from our side, so that everyone can either reread it or go through it again or share it with a member of their team. And with that, I would just like to thank everybody for joining here today. Like I said, there was a lot of content and information, but I would say one of the biggest points that I want to address and make sure that everyone is aware is that when you are moving into Azure and the cloud specifically, is we want to make sure that you're comfortable and it's not just a quick jump into there. We want to make sure that as you're moving, it's the right point in time for you as a company, and that it sets you up for long-term success. So if anyone has any questions at all, comments, or anything like that, please feel free to share them. And like I said, we'll be sharing a lot of bookings links so that you can book something directly with my team, and then also this recording. But thank you to wherever you're located at today. Thank you for the time, and look forward to connecting here as soon as we can. Thank you.